Really, it's the autonomous piece. I mean, if you look at full self-driving autonomous, I could argue it's the most undervalued AI play in the market today. And I think autonomous cyber cab and the timing, I think it could get accelerated 2 to 3 years. And that's important in terms of from a sum of the parts. The stock, that could add $1 trillion of valuation alone. And you could be looking at 20, 30% more revenue per year that you even see today.
You think $2 trillion valuation over the next 12 to 18 months is reasonable?
I think it's conservative, potentially, if they actually execute on the vision that I see, not just in terms of autonomous and AI, but really it's more about that software penetration within Teslas from an FSD perspective. It changes the whole business model.
I'm trying to think of, so they have less than 10% market share in China, correct? BYD's got like a third. Demand for EVs is already sort of slowing globally. So if you have a pickup in tariffs and you have what is a more protracted trade war, what does that do to Tesla's prospects in China?
Sure. I think there's one big X variable. The bet for the ages.
Pardon the pun.
No, and I think the bet for the ages for Musk was betting on Trump because he is going to have a significant seat at the table when it comes to the China tariffs. I think especially on the AI trade, I fully expect there'd be carve-outs relative to Tesla and Apple when it comes to any sort of tariff back and forth. And I think within China, Musk has been that sort of 10% politician, 90% CEO. China just had a record quarter, if you look back. So I'm not of the belief that China is going to be a huge headwind. I think overall, this is a game changer for the story. You know, when you look at, I think over the next 12
months. Is there any spreading yourself too thin risk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Guy's running like all sorts of stuff, and now he's got a foot and a half in the, he's going to have a foot and a half in the Oval Office whenever he wants it.
Look, being essentially a whisperer, really a strategic advisor for Trump, I mean, it's going to just put another sort of balancing act for him between SpaceX, Tesla, Boring Company, and others. But my view here is that investors will take that because Musk having a strategic view and a strategic, I think, essentially chair in the White House is significant for AI. It's for autonomous. But most importantly, the biggest regulatory issue that they've had to navigate from an autonomous perspective, a lot of that now starts to dissipate, and that's a key part of the value. I mean, I ultimately look at this as unlocking $1 trillion of value in Tesla, AI and autonomous.
Simply because of Donald Trump's win?
Simply because of Trump's win. Because Trump's win changes the whole game for Musk, for Tesla, for autonomous, for FSD. They'll still have issues on states. This is not going to be, a 100% smooth road. But this is a much different stock than it was a week ago with Trump in the White House.
Is there any risk whatsoever? I mean, I know, I ask you this just as like kind of devil's advocate. I don't know what the likelihood, if any, there actually is. But is there any risk whatsoever of a larger role, bigger than foreseen, within the administration to where he would potentially be a seller of stock?
Sure. So I don't see that Musk is going to take a formal cabinet position. We'll call him like an AI ambassador. He's going to create, he's going to be very strategic, I think, in very key aspects on tech, on tariffs, on AI. But I don't see any issue from a cabinet perspective, selling of stock. And I'd also say broader, from a tech perspective, whether you're an Nvidia investor, Apple, Musk having a say in AI and in tariffs when it comes to China, as odd as it seems, there's actually a comfort in him having that seat at the table versus a 202, bureaucrat.
So I mentioned your new title, and with that comes with a little bit wider scope of a coverage universe, now including Nvidia. How do you see the political debate around selling chips in China? Is there risk around that now, more so than ever, because of the relationship that Trump's going to have with the Chinese?
Yeah, I think it's a bargaining chip because Trump, Musk, everyone knows there's only one game in town. It's Nvidia, right? It's Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, and this is going to give them more negotiating power in terms of chips into China. And it's something that's going to ultimately play out. You saw the tariffs. I think it's had a contained impact on Nvidia, but it continues to be our belief. This is all setting up for a golden age of AI, not just for Nvidia, but for broader tech. But it's a bargaining chip as they negotiate with Beijing.
What about, speaking of negotiations with Beijing, what about for a company like Apple, which is trying to embed, all this new technology around AI, and it wants to sell a lot of these phones within China?
Yep.
They're obviously not, they're not expected to be that open to just allowing anything to be sold in their country. What kind of risk is there around that if there is some escalation between the two countries?
And I think no one understands that better than Cook in terms of the China sort of dynamics. I continue to believe they get a strategic partner in China, whether it's Baidu, whether it's Baba, that's going to be, we'll call it the AI partner for Apple when it comes to iPhone 16, eventually iPhone 17. And I think that's why China is going to be a strength for Apple, not a headwind.
Because you can't have a carve-out for everything, right? Not every single company is going to have its little carve-out, which enables what is an acrimonious relationship between China and the U.S. to just benefit X, Y, Z company and this company here. At some point, broader policies in this country are going to impact big businesses.
No doubt. But I think Musk being involved changes the whole landscape. And I think that's something where in tech, the reason you haven't seen tech sell off in terms of worries about tariffs, there's a view Musk understands in terms of there will be poker moves played, but no poker move was better than ultimately him betting on Trump, because now we're talking about something that's going to be, I think, trillions.
No, that sure looks like a royal flush that he had in his hand. Lastly, and then I got to go. Nvidia, what is next week? The earnings, right? What do we think about this heading in?
Get the popcorn, get the watch parties ready. I mean, this is going to be a jaw dropper. I think Street's still underestimating in terms of where numbers go over the next 1-2 years. I think this is one. They will battle, but ultimately $4 trillion market cap is on the horizon.
We'll leave it there. Dan Ives, new title and all, comes to Post 9 and shares his views. We appreciate it as always. Thank you.
So much.
All right, coming up, navigating the.
That'll be.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think as me and you have talked and we've talked on the show, this is just the beginning. I mean, I think this is ultimately going to be another 2-3 year bull market for tech, because it's a fourth industrial revolution that's playing out in front of us, and that's going to be big tech and the multiplier. And I think it's only 10 p.m. in the AI party that goes to 4 a.m.
Yeah. Have you gotten any later in the party, or are we still, it's always kind of early, isn't it? I mean, it's been a year now, but we're still at 10 p.m. Oh, we started at 9. Okay.
Started at 9, now we're 10 p.m. And look, we think tech stocks are up another 25% over the next year. And I think NASDAQ 25,000 a year from now is something that we're going to start talking about going into the end of next year, early 26.
Yeah, so much of this, there it is, the last line there, so much of this depending on, the numbers are staggering. We talk about them all the time, quarter to quarter. But you think AI CapEx is going to exceed $1 trillion. Why? In 2025, I should say. Yeah,
right.
Why? Yeah.
It's everything we're seeing. Look, that's why we travel the globe, right? It's trying to understand where the AI CapEx is and what's happening in the market. I think Street's underestimating AI CapEx potential by 30 to 40%. And I think the biggest thing here is the multiplier. For every dollar spent on an Nvidia chip, there's an 8 to 10 multiplier across the rest of tech. That's why you have names like the Messi of AI, Palantir. You have other use cases that are now starting to be in software, Salesforce, front and center. And this is just the beginning. It's get the popcorn out, because the rest of tech now sees the benefit of the AI revolution.
Although, Dan, people are still now this morning looking at Adobe's guide, on the back of it, Oracle's guide. Is there going to be some kind of pause or chance to breathe, you think, in early 25?
Yeah, Carl, I think there's definitely chances to breathe. But when I look at sell-offs in Oracle, sell-offs in Adobe, I think you buy these dips, because it's where I see this going over the next 12, 18, 24 months. Because how we view this all playing out is the use cases are now front and center. And the street will sell these off near term, just like we've seen other names sold off over the last year, whether it was Palantir, Tesla, Apple, and others. But now that AI revolution, it's coming, not just to the enterprise, but coming to the consumer, and that's through Cupertino, which is why I think Apple's going to be the first $4 trillion market cap, potentially by the end of this year or early 2025.
Do you buy Meta stock on the fact that Zuckerberg, as we just heard from President-elect Trump this morning, went to visit him, and Mar-a-Lago is giving money to the inaugural campaign? Bezos, he said, is going next week. We know Elon Musk, and it's worked for Tesla. Are these fundamental reasons to buy the stock?
Look, I think there's been early Christmas present, early holiday present when Khan's out at the FTC. I think it changes the dynamics. You can have massive deal making. We think deal making is going to be at more than 50% in tech. And I think who's the strong are going to get stronger. That's going to benefit Meta. It's going to benefit Alphabet, clearly Amazon. And then the one that benefits the most is, I think, Musk and Tesla. It's our view at the end of 2025, we're likely staring what could be a $2 trillion market cap for Tesla on the autonomous vision and deregulation in the Beltway.
Dan, as always, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.